Have you ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted? Felt the sting of disappointment when others didn't meet your expectations? You're not alone. The cold, hard truth is that people will let you down. Not once, not twice, but many times throughout your life. But before you let this truth turn you bitter, listen closely, because understanding this is the first step toward mastering your own response. And that, my friend, is where real power lies. Now, let's delve deeper into these hard truths about people through the lens of Stoicism, a philosophy that has guided many through the complexities of life for centuries. By understanding and embracing these truths, you will learn how to navigate relationships and life's inevitable disappointments with a sense of peace and purpose. First, let's talk about a principle that lies at the very heart of Stoic philosophy. You can't control other people, but you can control how you respond to them. This concept is both liberating and challenging. It's liberating because it places the power back into your hands. Your happiness, your peace of mind, your emotional well-being, these are all within your control, not in the hands of others. But it's also challenging because it requires a deep level of self-awareness and discipline to truly internalize this idea. Think about your everyday interactions. How often do you find yourself frustrated because someone didn't meet your expectations? Perhaps a friend didn't show up when you needed them, a colleague didn't complete their part of a project, or a loved one said something hurtful. It's easy to get caught up in these moments, to feel anger, disappointment, or even betrayal. But what if you could step back and see these situations from a different perspective? Stoicism teaches us that our distress is not caused by the actions of others, but by our judgments about those actions. If you can shift your mindset to accept that people are acting according to their own nature, not necessarily with the intention to hurt or disappoint you, you begin to free yourself from emotional turmoil. This doesn't mean becoming passive or indifferent. Rather, it's about recognizing that the behavior of others is not something you can control. What you can control is how you choose to react. Will you let their actions dictate your mood and your day? Or will you choose to remain calm, accepting that while their actions are out of your control, your response is entirely within your power? This brings us to the next hard truth. Suffering is inevitable, but how you suffer is a choice. Life will undoubtedly present you with challenges, many of which will be directly related to the people around you. Relationships, while a source of joy, can also be a source of great pain. But here's the Stoic twist. Suffering, while unavoidable, doesn't have to be a source of endless misery. How you process and respond to suffering determines its impact on your life. Consider this: suffering is like a storm. It arrives whether you're ready for it or not, and often, it's beyond your control. But you have a choice. Will you be swept away by the storm, or will you find a way to navigate through it? The Stoics believe that suffering is not just something to endure, it's an opportunity to grow stronger. When faced with disappointment or betrayal, rather than sinking into despair, you can use these experiences to build resilience. Imagine suffering as a sculptor's chisel, shaping you into a more resilient, more understanding, and ultimately, a stronger person. But how exactly can we use suffering as a tool for growth? It starts with reframing your perspective. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What can I learn from this?" This simple shift in questioning can turn a painful experience into a powerful lesson. Maybe that betrayal taught you to be more cautious in whom you trust. Perhaps that disappointment reminded you to set healthier boundaries. Each experience, no matter how painful, holds a lesson that can contribute to your personal development, if you're willing to look for it. Now, let's address another uncomfortable reality. Not everyone will like you, and that's okay. This is a truth that can be particularly difficult to accept in our social media-driven world, where approval and likes seem to be the currency of the day. We all have an innate desire to be liked, to be accepted, to belong. And yet, no matter how hard you try, there will always be people who don't see your worth, who misunderstand you, or who simply don't like you. The Stoics understood this deeply. They taught that the opinions of others are beyond our control, and therefore, should not be the measure by which we assess our self-worth. Let's break this down further. Imagine trying to please everyone you meet. You'd quickly find yourself exhausted, constantly changing who you are to fit into someone else's expectations. But here's the catch: in trying to be everything to everyone, you end up being nothing to yourself. The Stoics encourage us to live according to our own principles and values, rather than chasing the approval of others. When you focus on being true to yourself, those who genuinely appreciate and resonate with your authenticity will naturally be drawn to you. And those who don't, let them go. Their opinions are not a reflection of your worth but rather of their own preferences and biases. This leads us directly to another important concept. Expectations often lead to disappointment. We create these scripts in our minds of how others should behave. Friends should always be supportive. Partners should always be loving. Colleagues should always be competent, but life doesn't follow our scripts. The reality is messy, unpredictable, and often, people will not meet the expectations we place on them. This is where much of our suffering comes from, when the reality of a situation clashes with our expectations. Disappointment is the inevitable result. The Stoics offer a simple but powerful remedy: expect less from others and more from yourself. This doesn't mean you should lower your standards or become cynical. It's about recognizing that people are not characters in the play you've written in your mind. They have their own stories, their own struggles, and their own reasons for acting the way they do. By adjusting your expectations, you minimize the gap between what you desire and what actually happens. This doesn't just prevent disappointment, it allows you to approach situations with greater understanding and compassion. When someone fails to meet your expectations, rather than reacting with anger or frustration, take a step back. Ask yourself, is this disappointment because of their actions, or because I expected something different? More often than not, you'll find that it's your expectations that need adjusting, not the person's behavior. This doesn't mean you should accept poor treatment or become a doormat. It means understanding that people are complex, and sometimes, their actions reflect their own struggles, not a personal attack on you. Now, let's talk about something that might be more familiar in today's world: the comparison trap. How many times have you scrolled through social media and felt a pang of envy or inadequacy? It's so easy to fall into the habit of comparing yourself to others, whether it's their success, their relationships, their appearance, or their lifestyle. But here's the thing: comparing yourself to others is not only unproductive, it's also deeply unfair to yourself. The Stoics believed in focusing on what is within your control, and comparison is the opposite of that. When you compare yourself to others, you're measuring your life against a standard that is not your own. You're judging your journey by someone else's map. But everyone's path is different. The person you're comparing yourself to may have different challenges, different opportunities, and different strengths. Their success doesn't diminish yours, and their failures don't make you any more successful. The only person you should compare yourself to is who you were yesterday. That's where the real competition lies. Every day is an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to become a better version of yourself. Celebrate your progress, however small it may seem, and focus on your own journey. The Stoics would advise you to practice gratitude for the progress you've made, for the lessons you've learned, and for the challenges that have shaped you into who you are today. Finally, I want to talk about the world's indifference to your expectations, a tough but crucial truth. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that life should be fair, that good things should happen to good people, and that if you work hard, you'll be rewarded. But the Stoics knew better. They understood that the world operates on its own terms, not on ours. This doesn't mean that life is unjust, it simply means that life is indifferent. This is perhaps the hardest truth to accept: the world owes you nothing. We often expect life to treat us well because we've done the right things, we've worked hard, been kind, followed the rules. And when life doesn't deliver the results we think we deserve, it's easy to become bitter or disillusioned. But the Stoics would remind us that our job is not to control the world, but to control our response to it. When you accept that the world doesn't owe you anything, you begin to take full responsibility for your own life. You stop waiting for someone else to give you what you want, and you start working to create it for yourself. This is empowering. It means that your success, your happiness, and your fulfillment are within your control. You may not be able to control the circumstances, but you can control how you respond to them, how you persevere, and how you continue to strive for what matters to you. In conclusion, these hard truths about people, about suffering, about expectations, comparison, and the world are not easy to accept. But once you do, you'll find a sense of freedom that you never thought possible. Stoicism isn't about denying the difficulties of life. It's about embracing them and using them to become stronger, wiser, and more resilient. So, the next time you're faced with disappointment, remember, it's not the actions of others that determine your happiness, but your response to those actions. When suffering comes, see it as an opportunity to grow. When others don't like you, let it go and focus on being true to yourself. Adjust your expectations. Compare yourself only to your past self, and take full responsibility for your own life. This is the Stoic way.